Well, hey there, this is Zeke. I'm out in my workshop, and recently I saw a news report on one of the local news stations about a taxi problem in the Seattle area. And the reason I want to talk about it is because the report was just as shoddy as most reporting that I see nowadays. It was a puff piece, in a way. So let me lay out the problem. The problem is that there are 630,000 people in Seattle, approximately. And there are 700 taxis. And the news story was done because there are a lot of people who are waiting for up to an hour for taxi. And in many cases, the taxis never even show up. And so the people wind up finding an alternative way, usually walking. And if you've ever been to Seattle, that means crappy weather and very steep hills. And so people have complained about it. So the news report interviewed a couple of people who, were in the process of waiting for taxis, and one of them finally gave up and walked, and the other one finally gave up and flagged the taxi down, which is apparently not what you're supposed to do in the Seattle area, which I don't understand. Now, when I was much younger, I used to drive a taxi cab to supplement my income, and it was interesting, and I learned quite a bit, and I know a little bit about how taxis work. But anyway, they brought on in this interview a guy by the name of Craig Lazy. I don't know if that's the way you pronounce his name. It's spelled Leisy, and he's with the Consumer Affairs Unit, which is a government agency. Now, I'd like you to pay attention to that name, the Consumer Affairs Unit. And when he was interviewed, he said, well, we can't allow too much competition because then taxi drivers wouldn't be able to make a living wage. That's what he said. He's with the Consumer Affairs Unit, not the Taxi Driver Affairs Unit. And he said that too much competition, pardon me, too much competition would mean that taxi drivers wouldn't make a living wage. Well, Mr. Lazy, isn't that up to the taxi drivers to decide? And too much competition? Too much competition? See, this is what's wrong with government people all around. They don't understand competition because they really don't have it, because they cannot be fired for doing a bad job, like Mr. Lazy is apparently doing. See, he's of a mindset that most government people that I run into are in. And they think that they're actually in charge and they're supposed to solve problems. But they have no idea what they're talking about. It's amazing. See, if the problem is that the taxis cannot get there in time to serve their customers, competition is exactly the thing that is needed. Somebody will come in and find a better way, find a more efficient way, find a cheaper way to serve their customers. And you are with the Consumer Affairs Unit, Mr. Lazy. The consumer is the customer, and that is who you're supposed to be focusing on, not the taxi drivers. That's not your responsibility. That's the responsibility of the taxi drivers. If they can't make enough money as a taxi driver, well, then they'll go figure out another way to make money, won't they, Mr. Lazy? But that's not the way government thinks anymore. Government thinks that their job is to make sure that nobody fails and everybody's just happy and lucky and wonderful and hunky-dory. Well, that's not your job, government, any of you in government. Your job is to stay the fuck out of everybody's way, allow competition to happen, and guess what? The consumer will be served properly by somebody who can serve them properly. And yes, that may mean that some taxi drivers no longer have a job as a taxi driver. And yes, that may mean that some taxi companies go out of business because they suck. That's what competition brings. It brings improvement, betterment to the people that they serve. There's my thoughts on it. You have a great day. And Mr. Lazy, or whatever the hell your name is, you really should resign. You haven't got a clue what you're doing. You have a great day.